Yo, we're back with episode number 6 of the Young Entrepreneur's Bible. My name is Eduardo Duran. I'm here with my co-host, Mateo Delagula, and our wonderful guest, Diego Rubio.
Thank you for saying wonderful. I appreciate it.
How's your day, Diego? How are you doing?
So far, so good. I started off at 6 a.m.
Did you have class this morning?
No, thankfully, it's the discussion sessions on Friday, so I don't necessarily have to go.
How does it feel being a professor?
Weird. I've never wanted to be a professor. I never wanted to come back to college. I think college for me was very like a one-stop shop and like bye-bye, get your degree and bounce. But I've enjoyed it so far. I think I learned more from teaching than them learning from me, which is weird to say, but yeah, I mean, it's been beneficial for me, at least. I don't know about them.
Yeah, I mean, they say that's one of the best ways to learn is
Yeah.
like to teach others. Do you feel like, I mean, you're a very young professor. Do you think you connect with your students?
No, actually, I think being young does quite the opposite. I think whenever you see a professor that's my age, they probably assume that I'm a TA, and I've had that reaction like ever since I started teaching, and it's kind of hard for them to give me the same amount of respect as they were to give the faculty member or someone older, but I think you earn the respect. I think that's what I like about it, is like once you start teaching and they see that you actually know something, they kind of say like, oh, okay, well, I'll start treating you nicely.
You should just catch them off guard on the first week of class and just
sit
give them
like
a
a student.
super hard assignment.
Yeah, and see what they do.
They do.
What do you teach, by the way?
So I teach 2 classes. One of them is like your traditional entrepreneurship class, where we teach about revenue models, like the lean canvas, and at the end of the semester they pitch their idea. And the second one is more about entrepreneurial mindset, and we teach them about frameworks on how to make decisions, how to reframe failures, how to identify a problem and create opportunities based on the problem. So more general aspects of entrepreneurship, but yeah.
I have a follow-up on that. Do you think that being an entrepreneur is something that you're just born with, or do you think that anyone can just be taught to adopt those frameworks and operate with those?
Yeah, I actually hate that narrative of, oh, you were born to be an entrepreneur. I think anybody can be an entrepreneur. I think for me, the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who's able and has the skill to see the opportunity where others don't see the opportunity. And as long as you're conscious about wanting to see opportunities will fall into place. Like you just have to be actively pursuing whatever it is you're trying to pursue in an entrepreneurial manner. It doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, I'm born with it and I'm meant to be an entrepreneur.
Do you think some people are more predisposed because they're more risk-taking in their personality, or how?
I mean, obviously, like, there's certain types of entrepreneurs, right? There's the entrepreneur that becomes an entrepreneur because of their craft. There's entrepreneurs that become entrepreneurs because they just love executing and creating something. And then there's the hybrid model, right? So, for example, the Shopify founder, right? He's a product guy. He loved creating software, and now he's the chief product officer. He's not the CEO because he realized that what he loves is product. He likes developing new stuff instead of like being the strategy guy or the one that's on the executive team. So it's just a matter of you as an entrepreneur identifying your strengths and realizing, okay, well, I'm good at marketing. I'm not really good at execution. I need to build a team around what I lack. But it doesn't mean that just because you are not the type of personality that brings execution or is risk adverse, doesn't mean that you are not capable of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I actually was listening to, I think it was Alex Hormozy's podcast, and he was mentioning the 3 types. Like I think he called it like the artist, which is like it's your craft and it becomes an entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah.
And then there's like the straight business guy who just likes what you framed as execution guy.
Yeah.
Who just likes to build like businesses, and
right.
And there's the people in the middle who are kind of a hybrid.
Yeah, I think I consider myself the executioner. Like, for example, the first business that I did was recruiting, and I just hate HR. I hate like everything that has to do with it. But I saw an opportunity there in my community and just exploded up on that. And I tackle business as where can I gain opportunity and make a profit out of it. I really don't see it as what I'm good at because I can always learn that aspect of the business. You're still
zoned out a
hungover?
little. Yeah. Anyways,
Mateo is hungover.
yeah, it was my birthday last night, so
Oh, it was your
Oh,
birthday.
shit.
well, technically it's my birthday right now.
Happy
Dude,
birthday.
happy
I didn't know
birthday.
that.
Anyways,
We should go out for drinks.
Yeah, we
After-
should get, drink,
No,
we should
I'm
get drinks
good.
after this.
I'm
Jeez.
good. I can. I need to go to the gym after this. But I was thinking back to kind of what you guys were saying about the artists and what I can't remember the other two, but
Mhm.
I know in kind of the study of entrepreneurship, there's the 4 rules or the 4 personas for a team, or usually when they have you do like your entrepreneurship group projects, that's
Mhm.
how they split it up. I don't know if you remember it, but I know one of them is the hacker, and then
Oh yeah, the archetypes.
yeah, do you remember them?
I don't actually remember them, but yeah, it was something like kind of like the same thing that what's
Yeah.
his name?
Alex Hormozy.
Hormozy.
Alex. Yeah, kind of like splitting it into like the product team, the marketing team, the sales team, and like the strategy team.
Yeah, essentially like the 4 divisions are things that you need to have from the start to scale, which I don't necessarily think is
Mhm.
true. To be honest with you, I think what you really need is a hacker,
Mhm.
at least for technology, right?
Mhm.
You need the hacker, and then you need I guess you could say the artist, the person that comes up with the idea,
Mhm.
and then the person that can like execute on building it and designing it.
Right.
I think if you have those 2 parts, that's extremely important. And that's what like a lot of VCs or just investors in general look for in
Mhm.
terms of founding team
Mhm.
when they're trying to like back an early business. But go into a little bit about, you were mentioning your business in the HR field.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you did and
Yeah.
how you came up with that idea?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Mexico. Whenever I was in college, I realized I didn't want to be an engineer and decided to go against the grain and start researching what opportunities were back in my hometown because I realized that if I wanted to build something, it was going to be very difficult for me to make something in the United States because it takes a lot of capital, right?
Yep.
And so I went back home. One of my friends, her mom is a director of this big manufacturing company. And I just started talking to her about what her biggest pain points were. And she started talking about, the logistics of it. Sometimes it's inefficient and like just general aspects of it. But this is a good advice for people who are trying to do customer discovery. Whenever you do your first customer interview, they always try to give you general terms. And you kind of get discouraged, like, oh, it's just the typical answers that you will expect. Like, I could have walked out of that conversation saying, oh, everything's wrong with the manufacturing industry. Like, I don't know where to start, right? But it's just a matter of having reoccurring, meaningful conversations like I did with her. I started asking her, okay, well, what about the logistics is wrong with it? And, it was more of like identifying exactly what the pain points were. And one of the things that I saw a big opportunity gap was on the side of what they called temporary hiring, which in Mexico back then, there are peak seasons of manufacturing where they don't want to hire personnel because it costs them benefits. It costs them if they get fired or they leave the job, they need to pay them severance pay. Like there's a big percentage on top of the salary that a company has to account to. So companies don't want to have that overhead, so they just want to hire an outsourcing company, which was what I did, to do that temporary labor for 3 to 6 months instead of actually hiring someone. And so I saw that there was an opportunity there because the companies that would do temporary labor were from 5 hours away, 6 hours away, and they were very inefficient in responding emails. They were very inefficient in getting the contract completed. So what it means whenever a contract is incomplete is actually putting butts in seats, actually getting the amount of people that they require. and like the events that they would do, they were inefficient. So just because of the lack of distance, or I guess the distance of where the headquarters were and where the actual servers were being generated, it was very inefficient for them to actually maintain. And so I decided to be the first local outsourcing company for my region. And with that came like recruiting events. I had contracts that, you had to fill up like 200 to 300 people, per season. And yeah, I mean, it was just exploring that problem space and really like digging deep into like what the process looks like in their perspective and see where you can gain advantage of it, right? And I wasn't an expert in this area. It was just a matter of like really wanting to break through and really having the hunger of making money out of something that you have the chance to, right? So, and I think that's what entrepreneurship is. It's just like really looking where the opportunity is and arbitraging that to make a little bit of profit in it.
Yeah, I had a question about that. I think I agree with you on being an entrepreneur in large part is being able to be aware of your surroundings and aware of market conditions and aware of people's pain points, having frameworks like the customer discoveries once you kind of have an idea to further specify what you want to do. And my question is, once you find like, okay, there's a problem here and that needs solving, how would you say, like, you said you're not an expert in staffing, you're not an expert in any of that. There's a lot of people who can identify issues. Like, how do you need to know like basics of the field you're going to try to be an entrepreneur in, or do you adopt like a screw it, I'll learn as I go? Like, how much of prior knowledge do you need to be entrepreneurial in a specific field?
I don't know if this is the right answer, but this is the way I approach life and approached all of my entrepreneurial ventures is I'll figure it out as I go and always mirror what other companies are doing. And what I would do very, very early on is whenever I really knew that staffing was a big problem, I would reach out to other regional companies that were small in size and were like far away from my market, where they didn't really have the threat of me competing with them, that they were open enough to have a conversation with me. So I would have these interviews with them, like, walk me through the process of you trying to acquire a customer, walk me through the process of actually staffing a company. And like having those conversations opens up the bigger picture, and it's just a matter of execution and like trial by error to see like what practices benefit you in your market.
So I guess going back to like at first when you were just doing your initial customer discovery, how long did you spend on that customer discovery phase, and how many times did you do like interviews?
I did interviews for 3 months straight, and it wasn't a matter of like, oh, I did 100 interviews today, like I'm good. It was just like, okay, like I have a recurring role of like questions, and I have a recurring number of people that I can ask. And planning wise, I took about 3 to 5 months in like actually like scoping out what the opportunities were, what companies can I really break into, what other companies were going to be more difficult to get into. And it just comes to a point where you're just on the analysis paralysis. Like you already have the information, you already know what you need to do. It's just a matter of like going after it. And thankfully, I've never been the type of person that is like hesitant of doing something. I always just like get up and go. If I like really feel like it's an opportunity, I don't hesitate on that. But I've seen a lot of people have this plethora of information just ready to go, and they don't execute because, you know, the personality, they're just too risk adverse that they don't want to make the right they don't want to make the wrong mistake, right?
So you were definitely mom test proof, you'd say.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I try to teach in my entrepreneurial mindset is reframing failure. And the perfect plan does not exist. When it comes to building a business, you're going to make mistakes. I don't know if I can curse here, but you can make mistakes. You can fuck up.
Everybody fucks up, even the higher level.
Yeah,
always.
Like you guys see that Netflix when they fucked up, they tried changing their forgot what it was
The
specifically.
password sharing.
The password sharing thing, and they were like, "Oh, psych, never mind." Like even someone with a whole team of decision makers still fucked up. And
Right.
It's like,
I mean, they
They're still
had to
breathing.
test it out.
Yeah.
Because starting a business is an iterative process of like trial and error, and even at the top level, like Netflix is like trying out in their innovation team, trying out new stuff, and if it doesn't work, then okay, let's move forward with it. With it, as long as you're cognizant of why you're doing it, and really leaving egos aside and knowing, okay, if I fail, it's okay. I don't need to backtrack my whole thing. I can still stay on course. Everything will be fine. It's just a matter of like getting the basics ready and executing once you have that amount of information necessary in order to go and launch your career or your company.
yeah, I always, whenever I talk about entrepreneurship with other people, I always like to frame it as like, there's the part that we just talked about, which is the gathering of information, the thinking of coming up with an idea, identifying a problem, seeing how you can provide value to that marketplace or ease their pain points or whatever it is. And there's, even it might just be the circles that Mateo and I move in, but like we talk with our friends, like even over a beer, like, oh my gosh, I want to start I want to start a moving company for students in West Campus, or oh my gosh, I want to start an
this
apartment
and this
located
and that, whatever.
and it's like you can have so many ideas and you have like entrepreneurial diarrhea, like literally. And it's like, so 99% of the people get to that stage, and it's just like I don't know what it is, if it's like the fear, then to actually do something and to execute, and like you can have all the ideas, but if you don't do anything about it, like none of it ever becomes real.
Right.
And
it's the dopamine hit of whenever you're talking about doing something. It's the same amount of dopamine that you receive just saying it versus whenever you actually do it. So whenever someone talks about doing something, they feel proud because they just told you.
It feels good.
So the urge of actually starting it.
It also makes it feel real to them.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I think one thing that's like been happening to me, the more and more I go down my journey, and like I guess the more I'm kind of establishing myself as an expert in the space, more people are coming to me with like their entrepreneurial ideas or wanting to talk about things, but it's always an idea first. And so I try and give them the best advice I can give them, or I always try to give them, is, cool, you have this idea, scrap it. You've already started at the wrong spot. Go find the customer segment you want to service and start doing your customer discovery, because the problem that you might think you're trying to solve probably isn't a problem at all.
Right.
You need to hear from your customer firsthand what is the problem that they actually have, which is exactly what you did.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I tell my students and people that come to me for advice is whenever they talk about an idea, I tell them, okay, you have an idea. I'm never going to tell you if it's a bad idea. There's no bad ideas in the world. I think there's just unproven ideas.
Yeah.
And what I need you to do is frame it as a problem, not scratch it. I think you might be on track to something, like really dig in deep onto why that idea came to you, but frame it as a problem. And then once you frame it as a problem, you identify your stakeholders, you identify your customers, and see if that problem is a problem in the general sense. Like maybe you're just having that problem, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I totally agree. I think people get too caught up in like the bells and whistles of the product rather than like realizing like what the scrappiest model of the solution would be, and then scale it from there.
Yeah, and product's a whole different beast as well, because once you do figure out that problem, you need to get an MVP, you need to get some sort of solution out to them as soon as possible, so that you can also start testing that hypothesis.
Yeah, I think I'm an expert in just making scrappy things. Like, for example, I started all my business with less than $5,000. And like, for example, my first business, I spent $300, which was to spend on psychometric software that you would evaluate recruiters, which I never used. And just like a software that was like QuickBooks. That's all I did. And the rest of it was just sweat equity and like hard work of like actually cold calling going in to see the hiring managers, like selling your idea to them. And I think a lot of people get too caught up in fundraising their ideas, especially in like the university space, where like, oh, I'm gonna go into this pitch competition because I want $10,000 so I can build my app. Well, okay, well, let's back up again a bit. I think the hardest proof that you can ever get for your business is sales. If you can actually have transactions under your belt, it would be an easier way for you to fundraise than just having the idea and selling the idea. So I think a lot of students just get too caught up in fundraising versus actually making the transactions, which I highly recommend that just focus on the day-to-day transactions. Once you have a big portfolio of transactions, you've validated your idea.
And I think that's almost like a fallacy with like technology is like you think you're going to come up with this awesome idea, this cool novel technology, and you're going to build it, launch it, and it's going to like make you $1 million overnight. But it can take so long to build, and you could probably make a lot more money way faster just renting a lawnmower and like mowing people's yards or buying a lawnmower or whatever. I mean, we had we had a weekend landscaping operation, and it was the easiest money we'd ever made.
And that's straight entrepreneurship. It was absolutely. For those watching or listening, there was when was storm. February.
Like
February Austin. There just tends to be every year. It seems like there's just a crazy ice storm, and this year was no different. If anything, it was probably worse. It wasn't even that cold, to be honest. It's just the water. I don't know if it's the vegetation or what it is, but the leaves just like held up a lot of water and it all froze, and the weight just destroyed like almost every neighborhood in the entire city had trees everywhere, all over the streets, like rich neighborhoods, normal neighborhoods, campus area, everything.
Everywhere.
So I was driving around North Austin with my brother, and I just looked at our neighborhood because we have a house there, and it was completely in shambles, and I don't know, it was just a random thought, like, you know what, I bet they would pay somebody, or I'm sure they need help. Like, it's probably, what if some older lady can't, clean up this mess, or what if a perfectly able-bodied young man doesn't have the tools to do, said activity. So it was kind of an impulse, and to be honest, it seemed kind of irresponsible. We went to Home Depot. I put $2,000 on my credit card. I bought a pole saw. I bought a chainsaw. All the rakes and trimmers and tarps, and we rented U-Hauls and everything before we even had our first customer. I was like, we're getting all the equipment.
You made it back in like a day.
Tomorrow we're gonna get after it, and I'm gonna get customers because there was just a complete confidence on like there will be customers who want this. Yeah. And I called up a realtor, Chad Goldwasser, who's an awesome guy. He is like the lord of Circle C Ranch in South Austin, and the guy put us on a Facebook group chat, like, hey, these young hustlers and this and that. I got my girlfriend to make us like a logo and the branding, like a little flyer. Send that to Chad. He put it in the group chat, and we literally had job after job. We needed more hands, so I recruited Mateo and my friend Nick. We had to go back to Home Depot, get everybody a matching pair of like goggles and gloves and like the photoluminescent vests just to look legit, or whatever. And everything Milwaukee too, the vibe. And it was, I think we grossed like $6,000 in like 2-3 days. Everybody made around 1,000 profit.
It was fun. And it was a lot of fun.
And it was just hanging. We just like rented the U-Haul, and that was a quick one weekend, $1,000 profit for each of us. Like pays your rent, and it was a random entrepreneurial thing that we just like. Looking back, it could have easily gone like, damn, I just spent $2,000. We have no jobs. What do I do?
I think there's a lesson there.
Leap of faith.
That the satisfaction that you got out of getting $1,000 each versus actually thinking of doing it is far superior, right? But a lot of people just get stuck on it must be nice to be able to offer this service to them, and then you would just drive away. Like the alternative would have been just as fine, but that's like the norm. It's just an example of like, if you actually do it, your dopamine levels will rise.
And it required absolutely no skill to do that. It required nothing proprietary. we didn't know how, we had no idea how to trim or how to limb a tree or anything. So it was,
You just went out there and you did it.
Figure it out. As long as
we were
it's
on
going.
YouTube, like, I called my dad, and my dad was like con cuidado, like, be careful, like, don't try to get anything that's like 20 feet in the air. And like, we had such a demand that we had to turn people down. It's like, sir,
We
You
can't
raised
make
your-
it.
we
you
literally
raised your
can't-
price ups.
we literally, we did. We raised, dude, we were charging like $750, $1,000.
We made a lot of money.
Whenever we get the Zelle, I remember being, when I got the first Zelle, that rush of like this works, it's gonna work, like, oh my god. There was like my other friends and my girlfriend were like, come to Cane and Abel's, we're having drinks, and I had no trouble saying like,
We out here
I have
getting
a
this
job,
bread.
I have a job at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and it didn't feel like I needed to muster any kind of self-discipline or any kind of. We were just genuinely excited, like, dude, we have an opportunity. We don't know how long it's gonna last.
Yeah.
Let's go at it. And I think everyone else on the team was on that same front, and it was backbreaking work. Like, it was 6 to 6, 6 to 7.
Yeah.
And we'd get back home like literally all day manual labor, eating Whataburger, like in the U-Haul, like
Just
it felt
straight to
amazing.
sleep.
Yeah,
Straight to
imagine having that sensation every single day. Like,
Yeah.
that's what makes great success stories, is people who are able to say no to the, like, what do they call it? The
immediate
the immediate gratification. Like, actually having the grit of sustaining and like having a purpose as to why is what maintains you and have a great business in the long run.
How does that look on a long-term scale? Because this was 3 days. So, like, it's, I think it's a lot easier to stick to a diet for 3 days or to go to the gym for 3 days. And I personally, like, I have my own business, and I there's moments where I think Mateo, we're talking about it, we get a stroke of genius, and you feel you're so inspired and motivated, and I get back home after a long day of work, and I look at my laptop, I open an email, and I see something that triggers that entrepreneurial zeal. And I'm like, you know what? I end up at the computer till 2 a.m. doing some new innovative thing on my real estate business. Like, how do you try to, what would be your advice to someone that's, trying to get into entrepreneurship, to try to have that in a more consistent manner, or to try to, motivation and stuff tends to die early. It's more of like having a why, or how do you maintain that commitment long term? Because I think that's a prerequisite to succeed.
I think if you hang on to motivation, it'll be very chaotic. I think creativity is not something that you're born with. I think creativity is a skill that you can harness, and how you develop creativity is by daily journaling, daily conscious thinking about what could be better, and just focusing on the bigger picture day by day, and actively being creative in like looking at the scopes of whatever type of business you're trying to do, and like investigate exactly what it is you're trying to tackle. If you do that for 3 to 6 months, you're going to have a whole different perspective of versus where you actually started. So I think it's just being consistent and being conscious about what you're trying to achieve, and developing that skill by just journaling every thought, every idea that you have on a piece of paper.
What creative skills do you think you kind of have the most, right? Like, I can't draw.
Right.
So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking of. Like, I can't draw, but I, since a young age, have like been a musician.
Mm-hmm.
So what creative skills do you have?
That's a good question. I think I'm good at developing brands.
I
a lot
feel that too.
A lot of friends call me up whenever they have an idea, and I help them like create their creative aspect of a brand.
Yeah.
And food. I think that's like my creative outlet as well.
Your tacos were so good.
Yeah, and it's ironic. I was horrible at cooking in college, and then once I had my other business where I had to actually learn how to cook, it just became this thing that I obsessed over, because it was difficult at first, and I think I obsess over things that are difficult, because it's just like a matter of like, a pride in me like goes, I need to learn how to do this right in order to actually do it. So yeah, I think cooking and like the creative part of branding is the two creative outlets that I have currently.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Gosh, Currently, I like doing robalo, which is I think it's red snapper. I like to fry it. That's like my most enjoyable meal so far, but it changes like weekly.
What about you?
I'm a big steak guy.
Ooh. Where do you get your steaks?
What cut of steak do
Just
you like?
ribeye.
Ribeye, yeah.
From
fatty.
where?
Can't
Usually
lie.
just wherever I'm shopping for groceries, which changes week to week. Like sometimes it's HEB, sometimes it's Trader Joe's. I've done like the whole subscription meat thing where like it comes in a box.
Yeah.
And because I've obsessed over like grass fed and grass finished and whatever. Honestly though, I think if you're really like into the meats, it makes a difference. But for the average person, it's just like
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
whatever.
My recommendation is Costco. Costco has
bulk too. Oh my
Dude,
God.
I go to Costco every once in a while, and they have like a $30 package of like sirloin, and you get like 5-6 steaks out of it, and they're so good. They're so good, and they're really large. So
Yeah.
I buy the
Get your
fresh
steaks.
salmon from there. It's really good. Like you could eat it raw.
Costco's great.
Yeah.
I've been dabbling in curries recently.
Me too.
Nice.
Actually,
yeah.
I'm going to Thailand in like a month.
Nice.
So I've been trying to. I was like, oh, curry. I went to HEB and I just shopped around I looked at like an ingredient list and I made a curry.
From scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's awesome.
from scratch. It has like the curry powder, but
Okay,
You
yeah.
kind of cheated.
like coconut, like the coconut,
Coconut milk.
and like all like the potato.
Did
and,
you do
the
like a
chicken and all
chicken?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, chicken.
You use chicken breast or chicken thighs?
I don't remember, to be honest.
You gotta use chicken thighs.
Chicken thighs, yeah,
Chicken
it's more
thigh.
authentic. And then you don't have to do this, but I'm just fancy. At the end, you garnish it with some microgreens.
Oh shit! No, I threw my Mexican spin. I threw some serrano in there, and it was
Oh,
hot. It
okay.
was hot.
Well,
but-
actually, serrano is like the cousin of the Thai chili, so it did make
Yeah.
sense.
yeah,
I can grow some. I'll get you some fresh ones.
some fresh serranos.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna start a farm.
You just want to be a doomsday prepper, right?
Kind of.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I just want to live off grid. Wouldn't it be fun? Like imagine if you guys could come to my off grid
complex.
ranch podcast studio, and I'll have all the fresh produce. I could cook you guys an amazing meal with like a with a chicken that I freshly killed from my like livestock, and then we could go shoot guns or hunt deer or whatever, ride 4-wheelers. I don't know. I mean, we grew up here in Texas, so that sounds fun to me.
Yeah,
I don't know about you
I think that
guys.
sounds fun in like the concept, but in practice, I think I wouldn't like it in the long run.
What
like,
part
actually,
wouldn't you like?
Actually, like
I would
having
love
to
it. I
kill
think I'd like it.
the chicken and like
It's a
skinning
fresh
it.
chicken.
Yeah, I know, but it has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
That's like a hot topic. I'll just spill it whenever I talk to somebody and they're like, "Oh my God, like you're gonna kill the animal or like the cow." It's like just because you go to Trader Joe's, and it comes in a nice neat package, like
Same thing.
that was way more inhumane.
Yeah.
Grown in like a little 12x12 little box,
Yeah.
pumped full of hormones, and then just like literally raised to get slaughtered like as soon as it's able to, and with no regard to the animal's dignity. And it's like, if anything, doing it the proper way with like just like on a farm, free range
Free-range
Yeah, 'cause,
chickens
like
on
my
the
dad
ranch.
my dad's from like in Mexico, straight up like a ranch. So like I whenever I'd go visit like that, they would do that. Like I've participated in it, and it's like
Ceremonial.
some parts of it.
Did you also grow up in like going to the ranch and like whenever you would have a feast, you would go and get the chicken and cut the head, and like the chicken would run
Sí,
around at the same-
corriendo, yeah, and it runs and it's
I
like
had the same
gushing
thing.
blood. Yeah, and then like the killing like the pig and chicharrones.
Oh,
was,
yeah,
like,
you
you boil you get like hot water and you shave the hair off.
You
like,
have to, because if
Yeah.
not, it's gonna be really difficult to shave it off.
and like a cow too, which was like the
Yeah.
biggest animal that I ever had to like
Skin? Yeah.
or like
Did you
kill
skin it?
or like kill, I guess. And it was like having everything like hung. It was a huge family reunion, like 40 people, and it's
Yeah.
just like
It's
all the organs and everything.
Very labor intensive.
And it's like to think that's how we used to all.
Farming was like
live.
the first form of entrepreneurship. One of
Everybody,
if not one
everybody
of.
was farming though. 'Cause
Everybody
you needed
was
to.
farming and bartering. That's how you lived.
And I think this kind of to circle back into entrepreneurship with this.
Sorry, I got off.
No,
topic.
I think it's a great transition. We all used to like have to be farmers because we needed to meet a food production necessity, and
Yeah.
there wasn't refrigeration at large scale or preservation like for meats and things like that, as opposed to just a fuckload of salt. But the economy has evolved, like we've moved into like offices, and now with computers and spreadsheets, and now like internet, and now there's people who do like branding and media content, and like I think now we're going through another huge revolution with all of the chat GPT stuff and all of the AI.
Yeah.
And I was wondering like what do you how do you think that's going to affect the way that how impactful do you think that'll be in terms of will it get rid of a bunch of like jobs? What jobs is it going to replace? Are we going to still need humans to do certain things? Like it's a pretty hot topic right now.
I think it's interesting. The short answer is I don't know. I mean, I'm not smart enough to tell you like what will happen, but
nobody is.
I think if you go back 5 years ago and you hear the narrative of AI, it's like, oh, they're going to replace the manufacturing jobs. They're going to replace the like blue collar jobs. We're not going to have plumbers because they're going to come a robot and like do that. But the first line of attack was the creative space rather than the actual manual labor. So it's kind of interesting to see that that's the front that they're tackling. I think it'll be more of a, yes, it's going to eliminate some jobs, but the majority of the jobs will transform and create new ones. I think there'll be like people that are going to be prompt engineers and have to be specialized in how to communicate with the machine. There's going to be, different relationship. Even, if we go to like a really utopian view of the world, it could be more of like a better relationship towards the job, and like the way we view work would be more lenient for us to pursue creative ventures or whatever other ventures we desire. But that's like more utopian, right? Like I don't think that would ever happen.
I think right now, like the way that we live, obviously we're working to do the things that we want to do in our lives. Like I'm working because I want to be able to buy my ranch one day and grow my livestock, whatever. I think the way I like to envision it, or the way I hope it will work, is almost like WALL-E, where we no longer have to work to like do the things we want. All of the robots and the AI do it for us, and we could just like live our lives and chill every day. Maybe you won't have to work, so you could just chef it up and work on your cooking skills.
Yeah, that's kind of like the point that I was...
You could go to the gym, get swole. Yeah.
So in a society like that, would that be like a UBI with like universal basic income? Would we even need money? Like
I don't even think we need an economy.
What would happen at that point though? Like I would expect that there's people who want to have more, always.
Yeah.
And it's like, how would you go about getting more in that kind of economy?
But you also need to think of it as a world perspective rather than just U.S. I think if you go to Mexico, if you go to other third world countries, like the access to internet is barely getting to rural communities in other countries. So, I mean, for the world to catch up as a whole, it'll take several lifetimes.
Yeah, it really
like not
will.
my lifetime. I think I'm still gonna have to work.
It's crazy when you think about like how much wealth disparity there is.
A lot.
But at the same time, we were trying to figure this out the other night when we were hanging out, and like,
true.
Nobody knows how much money there actually is in the entire world. The estimates that we found were all vastly different. One said like 20 trillion, one said 80 trillion, one said 400 trillion.
And this is for fiat currency? Like just currency itself?
I think just, I guess, more wealth.
It's just so hard to quantify. Like, real estate or ancient palaces or gold.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Private fortunes. It's like, you don't even...
Wealth is very subjective.
It is.
It's I own a Rolex that's the first Rolex that's ever made, and it's worth $3 million. Like, it's only worth $3 million if someone pays you $3 million, right? A lot of wealth is subjective. It's just a matter of like understanding like what part of it is hard data, like the amount of earnings, the amount of cash flow that someone generates, and then versus the actual like subjective wealth, I would say.
Yeah.
Your health, your wealth is your health, or your health is your wealth. That's what my dad always said.
Yeah.
I think that's very true. I actually tweeted that recently, and I think if you're I think we're going as a country, we prioritize like, or entrepreneurs often prioritize like, you know, only the work side of it, and they eat like crap.
They neglect their life.
They neglect their, I mean, physical and mental health, and it's like, if you do that for long enough, like, you know, like it affects you where it affects your ability to work too. So instead of like I personally try to prioritize like going to the gym, drinking lots of water, eating well, and I think those things, you know, have immediate benefits. Like, oh, I want to look good for like the Thailand vacation, or I want to like be able to be ripped or whatever. But long term, it's doing that allows you to work longer hours. You don't get sick as often. You you know, you're able to, like, if you journal and you have a meditation practice or whatever floats your boat to kind of get you in the right state of mind, you have less days where you just feel like you can't do shit and you get cloudy. And I think everyone has days like that, but I think there's a reason why like Jeff Bezos is jacked, and like a bunch of those people spend time like in the gym eating well, like, because if they don't, they're hopping on planes going everywhere, like doing multiple talks and meetings and stuff all day. Like, they need to be in tip-top shape because they just can't afford to have, you know, be bedridden for 3 or 4 days in a row. It costs them millions of dollars to do that.
I think the way I like to view exercise and like eating healthy and like things that are uncomfortable that will benefit me in the long run, I like to look at it as life is filled with unchosen suffering. Like, someone will die, you will get sick, like things out of your control, terrible things out of your control will happen. So if you start to practice chosen suffering, like cold showers, going to the gym whenever you don't want to, eating the salad whenever you crave a cake, like those types of things that you can control will automatically help you deal with the unchosen sufferings that life will inevitably throw at you. So it's just a matter of like actually figuring out why you're doing things and maintaining and sticking to it.
Isn't that like the philosophy of Buddhism? Is that life is just like constant suffering? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, that's what.
Man, that's so sad.
That's
really sad.
It's enlightening.
It is
in its own way.
enlightening. Yeah.
It's like when you lift weights and you get calluses, because you're used to lifting heavier things, you know, or if you're a volleyball player and you're hitting the ball, and at first, like for me, that hurts so bad. Yeah. But like there's these high school players who've been, you know, they've been playing their whole life.
Yeah.
And they take it all day and like it doesn't hurt them. Or a chef that's, you know, dealing with a hot pan or like flipping a fucking tortilla.
Yeah, I can grab.
You can grab them and flip them, and like if you because you're used to that exposure, and I think it's the same with like, like you wake up, you want to just do what the average person does, especially a college student, roll up in bed, go on Instagram for an hour or two, and like, I have to go to class, kind of just go, come back, waste all your time, watch Netflix, and it's like, it takes a different, like if you like take a proactive approach to like, I don't want to go to the gym, but you go and do it, there's like a big sense, at least for me afterwards, where I feel like yes, like I was able to overcome that barrier that I had in my brain. And then when something tough comes in your life that you didn't, you know, choose, like you said,
right, you
can kind of source from that as like, hey, look, I've proven this, prove this to myself.
Yeah, I think Joe Rogan was the one that said, if I only went to the gym when I wanted to, I would be 300 pounds heavier. Like it wouldn't have been like the shape I am right now. Like, not me, Joe Rogan, right? But and going back to your point, I don't think viewing it that way is sad. I think for me, once I accepted that truth, it's like kind of liberating, because it makes me feel gracious whenever I feel happy, whenever I feel like life is going good. It's like these moments of appreciation will like triple in the amount of satisfaction that I feel, versus what I felt before accepting that hard truth.
It's interesting, right? Because there are some people that really accept nihilism as kind of their operating philosophy, and you know.
Yeah, I think we
Nihilism,
spoke about it.
yeah, nihilism by definition is, it's very similar to Buddhism in that way, where it's all about like,
No, I think it's
Is it
quite
not?
the opposite. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say it. The core philosophy of it is, but I think the realization of that can be freeing.
Right. But I guess it's like a matter of the perspective. Like nothing matters.
That's nihilism, though, right?
Yeah,
It's like
nothing matters.
That's the one with like nothing matters. Like, I think that's very different than like
Then
the
actually,
Buddhist. Like, okay, like
yeah.
my journey is through suffering, rather than.
But I think nothing matters too can be freeing in its own way, because it's like, oh, nothing matters. So why do I care if people?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
look
you
the
could look
way
at
I
it as
dress,
a
or do
positive,
this or do that.
nihilistic. I guess it's an oxymoron. Like
I've
positive
also met people
nihilism.
that are like nihilistic and super depressed. So
No, yeah,
that too.
That's
I mean,
what comes to mind with me, but I don't know how you would flip that on its. You can flip it on its head, like, oh, nothing matters. Like, you know, a lot of people don't want to content creating. They don't want to put their face out there because they're like, what if people make fun of me? What if this? And it's like, you
Yeah.
know what? Nothing matters. Like, I'm just gonna do what I want
Exactly.
to do because screw it. And like,
Yeah.
they're whatever. Or like, oh, like me specifically, I'm an engineer. I'm about to graduate from UT. I get a lot of crap for not going into the engineering space, and you know, you're wasting your degree in this. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? Like,
Fuck it.
it's like, yeah, and it's like, it's a sad truth, but like when you die, besides your 3, 4, maybe 10 family members that like consistently think of you or remember you, it's like you're just,
That's
you know,
it.
you'll be faded away. So it's like, why would you, that dude who discouraged you from taking that risk or posting those videos when you were in middle school or high school or in your career, they don't even like care or think about you. So like, why are you gonna give them that power over you? And like,
Right.
it doesn't matter anyway.
It really does make everything you think of or everything that you do while you like have your time here on Earth and in your life that much more worth it.
yeah, I mean, you got to look at the bigger picture. Like, the Earth has been in existence,
Yeah, forever.
for almost like forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have like this
What is it, 3 billion?
tiny speck
So
of
much.
time that human consciousness is awake, and we are able to be in presence of it. Like, if you look at it that way, I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, life is great. You're alive. You're breathing. The chances of you actually being alive right now are like impossible. And if you frame life as nothing matters, it's unproductive. It's harmful to you and to the people around you. And I would highly suggest to reframe your thinking and seek professional help.
Do you think it was fun being a caveman?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Would you be a caveman if you could go back in time?
Oh man, probably. I mean, probably not. I think there's things that I would like about them, but like, oh, you can't find food, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
You're
getting chased by a lion.
big animal, you're gonna die. Like right now, I think we're at a point in society or in our history where you can indulge in some of the things a caveman would do for fun, and you can. There's almost like a primal urge to like do you know, like hunt and just for sport, or to go climbing, or you can do all that kind of stuff, but you can like have, you know, food security, and like I wouldn't want to go back. And even like I heard someone say like, would you be rich in like the Roman times or like middle class now? It's like, dude, they didn't have air conditioning, like
Nah,
they didn't have.
dude. I think being rich as a Roman would be lit.
See, it'd be cool, but like, dude, you get a disease, you're dying. You get
That's
like you can have a huge palace, but it smells like ass because there's no
Plumbing.
Well,
It's
actually, the
it's all-
Romans were the first ones to create.
Yeah, they
yeah,
did.
but it's
plumbing
all
systems,
open. It's
so.
all open septic. Like, whatever. They were pretty advanced. But
Yeah, I have the same philosophy as you. Like, even going back, I don't know, 100 years. No, thank you. I love the internet. I think open access to information is like a blessing, and I'd rather stay here than going back in time.
What do you think of, like, I've seen, like, this might be a hot topic, but I've seen like some homeless people with like a phone, and they like plug it in, and they have like internet,
Yeah.
and even like they have access to stuff that, you know, 50 years ago, even though, you know, you'd have to go to a library to kind of consume, whether it be like creative content or academic content or whatever. Like right now, with just how advanced our infrastructure is, like
You need it.
you can, I'm saying you have access to almost everything without having a lot of. I think the access to the internet has been a great equalizer in access to like entertainment, access to knowledge, access to a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to be from an affluent background to have that, like the way you probably needed to in like the 1800s or whatever.
Right.
So
to
wait,
now.
so what are you asking?
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a great time. Like, I'm obviously the homeless thing is kind of a vast example, but
Yeah.
you know, you can be some kid in like a poor town in like Ohio or something, and you can teach yourself like machine learning and all that. And like I've taught myself almost everything on YouTube, and I go to UT, but like, you know, I've reinforced most of what professors say. Like, I go and I teach myself a lot on the internet. I don't need to go to a library. Like, anybody, no matter how poor you are, you have access to learn literally whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has access to learning whatever they want, but you also have to be cognizant of the environment. Someone who's of lower economic status is around. Like, for example, if I were struggling day by day earning minimum wage, the last thing I would worry about is cryptocurrency or like learning blockchain. Like, I need to put food on my table. Like, my time is consumed on that. So the priorities shift, right? Like, it's like the is it Maslow hierarchy of needs?
Yeah.
So once you get your basic needs, you can move into like creating wealth and like whatever.
I agree.
No,
I wasn't trying to be insensitive to the situations. I think there's a lot of people though who are not in that distressed situation, who still don't do anything about it and waste that access that so many people on a global scale would literally love to have. Yeah. And they waste it on like Netflix binging for literally like 6 or 7 hours on a weekend. And it's like, and sometimes it's me, I'm not gonna lie, like it's been me in the past, and now very, very rarely do I do that, because it just feels weird. Like, I don't know if you guys, like, as an entrepreneur, it feels weird if I go through a whole day and I lay in my bed at night, I'm like, I really didn't do anything today. It feels it makes me feel like, that's what gets me sad. I'm like, dude, I just like, whenever I feel stressed or anxious or like slightly depressed, it's usually because I haven't been doing anything. Yeah. And like, I hate to waste my.
Do you measure your self-worth onto how productive you've been or what you've generated?
I think it's a little. I think there's other things that influence it, but on a short time scale, I would say. Yeah. And I don't know if that's healthy or not, but like I think it's a productive way to live your life. Yeah, like, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, I made money today, or oh, I got a good grade today. It's like, oh, I called my mom, and like I was familially productive. Right. I had an 1 hour long conversation with a friend who's struggling with something in their mental health. Right. And like, I was able to be productive in that way. I think more than productivity, I'd call it like impact. As long as I have an impact on someone or something in some shape or form, I would call that a win. And I'm a junkie for like going, sitting in my bed at the end of the day and just like, oh man, like I had very little downtime that day. It sucked while I was going through it, but at the end, I feel like, it feels so good. Like, oh my God, I did so much. Like, the business is going good. I did all my homework. I didn't spend 3 hours on TikTok. Like, I felt myself slipping and I was able to turn it off. Yeah. And it feels really rewarding for me at the end of the day to look back and be like, I had a net positive impact on the world today. Yeah. I think that's a good way of looking at life. I also measure my self-worth, which is, I don't know if it's healthy or not. I don't know. But I like to measure my self-worth in like how productive I've been and like the grit that I've endured throughout the day or throughout the week. I know that there's like negative aspects to thinking that way, but for me, I prefer doing that than the alternative, right? So yeah, that's interesting that you. What about you, Mateo?
I think I find myself going through like waves where sometimes I'll be very productive and it'll be great, but then there will be other times where I'm super busy and not spending enough time like with myself or for myself. Yeah. And then I almost kind of go the opposite. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to do anything. Like
Yeah,
I need to
I know exactly what you mean.
I need to be alone. Like I need some time for myself. And in all honesty, I think for me, a lot of it is rooted in like growing up. Like in my house, we just didn't have like a lot of privacy. I didn't have a lot of privacy. Like I shared a room with my sister growing up, like all the way until she left for college.
Yeah.
So
Same.
now as an adult, I find myself like wanting to sometimes get more alone time
Yeah,
or privacy or being with myself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I lived with my brother growing up. We lived in the same room. And now that I live alone, I enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
That
it's
I'd rather
nice.
just like stay at home and like be with myself than
It can be
actually-
kind of bad too.
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
I mean, very lonely at
yeah.
times. I live with my brother too, and I still do, but different rooms now. We've upgraded.
Yeah, upgraded.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, I think I work in real estate, and I've had, dude. Sometimes I get some freshmen or incoming freshmen,
Mhm.
and they want to live alone, or they want like their parents want to give them like a 1-bedroom somewhere, and I kind of tell them like, hey, like
It's better to get a roommate.
I at least when you're a freshman, to like to kind of have a taste of
Yeah,
you're in a new space to like meet people, because I know some people who are like they do that and they just get so depressed because you come home and it's just like there's no one in the living room talking, there's nothing cooking up in the kitchen, there's no one doing anything. You're just like, well, what do I do now? Read. And I think for a more like seasoned person, like you've done the roommate sharing, you kind of appreciate the time, but we're humans are social beings. I think we need that.
I think I'm in a season of my life that I want a little bit of me time that I haven't had, the 20 something years that I've lived with someone else.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying it. I know that in the long run, it's going to be very lonely. So I'm going to either have to get a roommate or get married.
Yeah, I was
going
to ask, you're going to get married?
Yeah.
Planning on getting married? So it's like that.
It's like eventually I'm going to live with someone.
Do you have a girlfriend?
With kids?
I don't.
And all that.
So
Ladies,
he's single.
He's
but,
single.
But yeah. Yeah. And it's just a matter of like understanding what you value in your season and then actively doing what you need to do during that season.
We want to I think I'm a big proponent of engineering your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And your environment to try to like maximize what you want.
Yeah.
And
I like to call it designing my life.
Designing, yeah. I'm an engineer. I call it engineering. So it's like putting your gym shoes by your door.
Yeah.
So that when you wake up, it's like it's right there. It's one less thing.
Yeah.
Making your bed in the morning, so when you come home, you don't have to.
That always feels nice.
So stuff like that, like engineering your surroundings. Like when you work, putting your phone on work mode so that you're not consistently like getting bombarded with bullshit. So, being able to like proactively set your circumstances. And I think one of the deepest ways that people can do that they often don't look at is who you live with and where even. And like, dealing with, I deal with people with roommates and stuff all the time. And it's like, oh my God, I'm on a mission to eat healthy and go to the gym more. But my roommates just like, they favor stuff every single day, and it's just like, oh, hey Ed, like, do you want to hop on this? And I'm like, oh my God, like it's
easier
opposite,
to fall on the trap.
It's the opposite of engineering it for what you want. It's like you're getting tempted like with it right in your face, or you want to be someone who goes to bed early or wakes up early, and if the people around you are doing the opposite, it's so hard. And I think for Mateo and I, and for all the college students, it's exceptionally hard because our environment is designed very like everyone in college stays up super late. They wake up late. They eat like crap. They eat ramen and they drink 4 times a week. And it's like, it's so hard to be like to try to like have your own narrative and like actually try to stick to it when you're consistently tempted with all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy the amount of impact you get from your surroundings. I come from a small town in Mexico that it's very common for people to drink Thursday to Sunday. And I was that type of person that I would like to go get a beer and drink Thursday to Sunday, right? Yeah. And now that I'm in Austin, I don't drink as much. And I used to think like, oh, maybe I'm becoming an alcoholic, but no, it's just the environment that you're in that normalizes certain behaviors. And we can go back to the the example that you made about everybody has access, but they're not taking advantage of it. It's just a matter of like whatever they see normal is what they're gonna be more able to do, I guess. Like they're gonna see a car as an investment because their dad is telling me that a fancy car is better than a good house, right? Like those narratives are gonna be built into you.
Yeah.
That sometimes even the online tools won't help you to build wealth because you have like those fallacies that are carried through you through childhood.
Yeah. Like we were talking about this, like our Latino backgrounds, like our parents might be way more debt adverse.
Yeah.
They look at debt like the devil.
Yeah.
And it's like,
they don't know how to
like,
leverage it.
compralo en cash, like get the
Yeah.
because for a lot of those communities, debt has been crippling
Mm-hmm.
because it's been bad debt.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who are like, oh, get, some millionaire real estate dudes like, oh, just like take out loans and it's good debt, it's real estate debt.
It's debt put in liabilities primarily. That's the error.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Debt and assets will always be a good choice. Well, not always, but will primarily be
Usually
a good choice.
ends up going
good
well.
choice. For example, now that I'm out of my parents' house and live alone, I don't own a debit card. I own all of my cards are credit cards
Mm-hmm.
because there's no benefit of you having a debit card. You're
Mm-hmm.
paying with cash. And the way I like to do it is I leverage my debt of my credit card to gain points, to get cash back, to get
Mm-hmm.
whatever other benefits. It raises my credit score, so whenever I want to get a mortgage, I can have a better rate.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of people reframing what debt really means and how to take it into your advantage.
That's discipline though. Credit card.
Yeah.
And they make it so easy to like spend money you don't have.
It's very simple, but it's
so
very
simple,
hard.
but it's so hard to do in practice, and it's like
working out. Like, oh, how do you lose weight? Eat less than what you burn. How do I generate wealth? Spend less than what you earn. Like, it's simple things, but just
So
hard
to
in
do.
practice.
So hard to do.
All right. I think we got to wrap it up, guys.
Yeah. Do you want
That's
to...
fast.
Do you have any platforms people can reach you on, or any parting messages you like to give to our audience?
No, I just want to say, stay positive. I know being a college student, if the majority of your audience is college students, I remember whenever I was in college, I was pretty pessimistic and nihilistic, and things turned out to be good now. And if you're going through that during college, I just want you to know that life is longer than what you think, and success takes time, and being happy is just a state of mind that I'd rather you pursue meaningful things rather than just happiness, is what I would say.
All right.
Cool.
Cool.
Tune in and follow our Instagram.
Well, we don't have an Instagram.
Yeah, we don't. You're right.
We
Follow
have our own Instagram.
Follow us on LinkedIn, and we'll be posting videos and clips.
Follow Lease with
LWE Leasing.
LWE Leasing and Local Solutions.
Launchpad UT.
Launchpad UT.